Hey everyone. Yesterday was the More Than a Word CoffeeShop Conversation at Collins Coffee in Columbus, Ohio. It went so well, super exciting. Talked about the word concept of doubt with Zach Thompson. We talked about time with Lydia Solani. We talked about vulnerability with ECE Caraba Green. And I wanted to share this video of the entire event. It's about an hour long, but I really think that it's worth your time. Really think it's worth the watch. I learned so much from the speakers and their stories and experiences, and I think you guys would enjoy it. So keep watching and let me know what you think. Thanks.
This is my first time doing something like this, so it's a learning experience for all of us. It's called a CoffeeShop Conversation for a reason, so it's really about just us all talking and sharing our thoughts together around the concept of words, which is what the podcast More Than a Word that I started last fall is about. So I just want to share really quickly, for those of you who aren't as familiar or who don't listen to More Than a Word that often, kind of what the idea behind it is and how it kind of came to be and where I see it going. So I've had the idea of starting a podcast for a couple years. I never really knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. And then actually Zach Thompson, who you'll hear from in a couple minutes, and he came into Wellington freshman year, which was my first year in high school, obviously, and he got hired as the sports performance coach, and I was a soccer player. So we spent a lot of time together before we even really knew each other, just because I was training a lot and he was the coach. And then we started having conversations about nothing related to soccer and sports at all. Like nothing. Like I was sitting there, before my relationships with coaches had always been, play this way, do this, and then I started talking to him. I was like, whoa, this leadership stuff's pretty cool. Wow, this dude cares about things that a lot of people I didn't know in the sports world cared about, and I realized there's so much more out there than what I had previously considered to be important in my life. So those conversations on the field or in the weight room grew to me spending at least an hour a day, many times multiple hours a day in his office, probably talking to him more than he likes me to, but hey, you know what? We all have to sacrifice some things sometimes. But I enjoy the conversations. I hope you do too. But the reason I mention that is because that's really where I have learned kind of what I want to do with my voice and with my ideas. Zach so many times, and I give him so much credit for this, and I cannot never thank him enough for all the confidence he's given me, because I have talked to him. It's easy to talk in a one-on-one setting to someone about how you feel or what you think, but he's always been the one who's pushed me, why are you not sharing this with people? Well, go say this to someone else. I heard you say this yesterday. So I finally was like, dang, you're kind of right. Why am I in here? And, I come back every day, so obviously I like being in there. But then I kind of my two kind of paths merged. Whereas on one hand, I want to start a podcast. I don't know what it's about. On the other hand, it was, I have these ideas. I need to tell someone. Well, that's what audio is, telling people things. So it worked out perfectly, and I decided that I was going to start sharing my ideas through the medium of audio. And then I was like, well, I want to do something unique, something that isn't done a lot. And so I was thinking about all these ways to tell stories and to share experiences, and it hit me. The way that we communicate, the way we tell stories is by using words. But it's very rare that we actually slow down to think about those words themselves. So that's what really, I was like, that is a really cool concept, something that I feel is previously untapped in a way. And so from there, that kind of idea was born of, hey, certain people embody certain words more so than others. Why don't I talk to those people about those certain things? And back to the conversations with Zach. Zach and I, a lot of our conversations were centered around the word concept of purpose, a word that I consider to have changed my life in many ways, and Zach was the one that introduced me to that. So that was my first episode with Zach. He was my guest, talking about purpose. And that word really just kind of got things going for me, and all the other words since then have been based off of that. So, I've been talking for a little too long. You guys want to hear from some other people, but that's kind of the way that this came to be. And when I started it, I realized that, the audio medium was great, but I also wanted to get into the live space because I feel like people remember things and learn better when they can actually see something and when they're in the room to experience the whole feeling of that sharing time. So this is the product of that, and we are all here today, and I can't thank you guys enough once again for being here. I'm so grateful for your time and the fact that you care enough to come listen to all of us talk today, and I'm going to get you all involved as much as you want to be as well. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up our speaker number one, Zach Thompson. We're going to be talking about the word doubt.
Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Well, the way I like to start off is Zach, I would love you to introduce yourself and kind of tell everyone who you are and what you do before we get going.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me and the great intro to your purpose and what the purpose of this coffee shop conversation is and what More Than a Word is. Brad talked a little briefly about our relationship and who I am in his life, but with my own life, my mission is to educate, inspire, and improve strength of body, mind, and soul. And it's kind of stemmed from some adversity that I've faced in my life with my own heart condition and health. I was a college athlete. I played college baseball, and the year after I graduated and I was done playing, I found out that I had a hereditary heart condition and needed a defibrillator implanted right away. Got that defibrillator implanted, and the next 3 months it saved my life 3 times. So those events in my life were just kind of like smacks in the back of the head saying, hey, do something meaningful, what's your purpose, And over the years it's developed into Heartbeat Strength, and it's a company that I created based on my story, where I train individuals trying to strengthen their body, mind, and soul, whether it's in the physical capacity, the mental capacity, or the spiritual capacity. And I think for people to be truly happy and truly fulfilled as individuals with their life, they have to have a strong balance between those 3 aspects. So that's a little bit what I do, and that kind of leads me to this conversation.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, the word that Zach and I are going to be talking about is doubt. Zach requested that we talk about this word. He's been doing a lot of writing and work with it recently that I find extremely interesting. So we're just going to jump right into it. Zach, what does doubt mean to you?
And doubt's, I was talking to your dad earlier, it's a loaded word. It's a heavy word. And to me, doubt, it has this negative connotation. It's like a bad thing. Like, you can't doubt yourself. You can't doubt this podcast. You can't doubt your ideas. But I actually think it's a prerequisite to success. To me, doubt means that you're onto something like truly, truly great. If I have doubts, that means I'm dreaming pretty big, and that's a great thing to have. So it's a strong word, it's a heavy word, it's hard not to kind of have that negative connotation. But if we flip the mindset, I think it can be used in a really powerful, inspiring way.
What do you doubt in your life?
I doubt heartbeat strength. I doubt getting in front of people and trying to change their lives and impact them and inspire them. I doubt getting up here and doing a podcast with you. Just things that I doubt everything that's going to push the envelope. And it kind of keeps me on track. When I'm goal setting and when I'm kind of redefining my purpose and the meaning behind it, I look for doubt. Like I want it to be a little doubtful because I know that goal is set to its potential.
So it's almost like questioning for you.
Yeah.
It's the act of, it's kind of going through all the possibilities to make sure that something is worth your time.
Yeah, it's like, does this thing scare me? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, all right, I should try that out. Like, I should try to do that. And I think most of the time, a lot of people shy away from that. And I still do sometimes. Man, I have an idea and it really terrifies me, and I'll shy away from it, or I'll put it in my back pocket and I won't act on it right away. When really I think the thing we should do is understand that, you know, doubt's a good thing. It can create innovative thinking. It can create faith. And I think you can't have faith without doubt. It's that prerequisite.
Yeah. So, do you ever, when you're in a scenario in your mind and you don't have doubt, does that scare you?
I think there's a balance. I think you can have tremendous clarity, and that's a good thing to have. But I think the thing that I always keep in mind is, and again, like you said, this is a new word to me. Like, this is a new concept that I've been thinking of. But I think it's okay to have clarity. Obviously, it's a good thing to know your path. I think you need to have clarity in your purpose, 100% clarity in your purpose, and have a truly clear definition of what you are trying to accomplish, like what your why is. And then the ideas that spring up from that to achieve your purpose, I think you should have doubt with those things. I think, like I said, they should scare you a little bit, but the things that scare you are the things that are going to help you achieve your purpose and what your why is and what you're doing.
So, from what I take away from this, the way you describe doubt, which I think is a way that many people should look at it, it's like humility.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you humble yourself, but you also know that doubt creates this sense of urgency a little bit, and creates a humble and hungry mindset where you can strive to just create and have freedom in that.
Was there one specific experience that kind of opened your mind about this word and concept of doubt, or was it a progression over like a long period of time?
So I think the first time that I grew up playing sports. I grew up athletic, and every time I would walk out on a field, I would doubt myself. And it wasn't that I wasn't prepared, but I would those doubts would like creep up in my mind. I think the next thing that was kind of that brought up doubt was a religious aspect. You know, I think that I didn't grow up in a religious home, and I had doubts. I had doubts of, does God exist? Is there heaven? Is there hell? And those are kind of these far-fetched things, but they create faith. They create faith in me, and that's where this kind of idea stemmed from. And now this faith and doubt is like this everyday occurrence where, with Heartbeat Strength and trying to turn this into a thriving enterprise and a business, and for me to help as many people as I can and fulfill my purpose. I think now it's like, I doubt myself daily, where it's like, and can I really help these people? When I'm writing a post, it's like, is anyone really going to read this? When I'm on this podcast, it's like, is anyone really going to listen to this and get value?
It's my doubt too.
Right. But I think we're kind of pushing forward, and we're kind of pressing the envelope, and that doubt creates this faith, and the faith creates an abundance of success. And I think that has to be present. That's really the first thing, I think, you know?
That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
So, you know, for a lot of people who don't have your outlook about doubt, it's a detriment, you know? It goes too far, I think, sometimes. Where's that line for you? Like, how do you determine the line of where it's like good doubt that's helping you toward, you know, it's productive, It's productive doubt. It's a productive state of mind to where it's just beating yourself up and just negativity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and that's a hard line to tiptoe on. I think it goes back to your purpose a little bit, and if your doubts align, if you're doubting the actions that align with your why and actions that are pointing you towards your purpose and for a greater reason and for the greater good of people, like if you're serving people and those actions are those that you're doubting, I think that's that good feeling of doubt. That's okay, I'm scared of this, but I'm gonna push forward anyway. I've gotten caught in the trap where I've started to kind of doubt myself and be fearful of myself, and then I never act on that thing, or get in this negative self-talk where it can kind of hurt my positive well-being. And I think when I get into that stage, I think that's the reason why I've created this mindset switch on the word, because I think that when I got into that frame of mind, it kind of paralyzed me, and I was having a hard time remembering why I was doing what I was doing, and just taking the risk. I think doubt has to be there for you to take a risk and for you to reap the reward of it. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to balance, I guess, because I'm for one that is kind of a perfectionist in every sense of the word, and if you're a perfectionist, you're not going to live up to a certain standard, and you're going to have doubts and fears and everything. So it's kind of humbled me, like you said, brought me back down to earth and a level playing field, and helped me tiptoe that line a little bit better.
So I guess one thing that I wonder is, once you win, once you make it to where you want to go with heartbeat, strength, and everything else that you're doing, because I know you're going to win, it's just a matter of time. But I'm curious, once you get there to the place where you feel like you've made it, how does doubt play a role then? When you feel like you're invincible, you know what I mean? At that point, you might feel that way already, which you ripped, but but once you get to that point, how are you going to use that doubt that keeps you humble, that keeps you grounded, that keeps you working? How are you not going to lose that?
Well, I think first of all, I think doubt will play a role in me not putting myself up on a pedestal when I think I've made it. When I think I've gotten to where, you're the bee's knees, I don't know. You think you're up top and you're number one. I think doubt has to be present and to kind of knock me back down and humble me. It's for me, it's okay, who's the next person I can serve? What's the next thing I can do to help other people? And I hope I never get to a point where I never have doubts and I never have fears and I never have this want to help and serve more people, because that's kind of points back to the mission, the purpose of what Heartbeat Strength is. And it's this underlying thing where it's just, it's kind of a reflection of who you are, and it needs to be, just has to be present.
Yeah. So all these things we've talked about are kind of about self-doubt, internalized things. What about doubt in an external form, people doubting you? Because for me, that's one of my biggest motivations. What are kind of your thoughts on how do you use that when people doubt you, or when you hear people say, "Oh, he's not going to do it"?
I think it can serve as some motivation. I don't think that's healthy motivation, honestly, personally. I think your motivation has to come from a better energy than that, and I think that you have to, again, be really aligned with what you want to accomplish, and if other people begin to doubt you, then that also means that you're onto something good, because if I told people that I was starting Heartbeat Strength and trying to impact a ton of people on my own, and with this message and these ways of coaching people holistically and not just doing personal training and physical things. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are doubting me and doubting if I can teach leadership aspects and doubting me that I can teach mental and emotional health and responsibility and personal growth like that. I'm sure there are, but that's not really motivating me. The motivation is the mission and the purpose and the joy that I get out of that. But I think, to your point, is like if other people are doubting me, it's the same thing if I'm doubting myself. It means that I'm doing something great, or I'm about to do something great because they think I'm crazy enough to do it. I think history kind of gives us that recommendation of, all right, you have an idea, everyone thinks it's insane, you should probably act on it because no one else has thought of it yet. Or people just are so stuck in their ways or something like that, where you can make a really positive impact in your unique way that you have thought of or that God has spoken into you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your words of wisdom. It's very, very helpful to me and definitely to other people as well. So thank you.
And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now this is where we turn it over to you guys. Do you have any questions for Zach about doubt or anything? No?
Okay,
All right.
I'm out scot-free.
Got one.
Oh, you do?
I'm curious if you had any coaches or teachers in your past that have motivated you or helped you in your life's mission currently.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think it's super important to have that reflection on people that have pointed you in a right direction. My high school baseball coach was tremendous, and he was tough. He was hard-headed at points, but I think it was on purpose. And he just challenged us to think deeper and play together, and he just taught us a lot of life lessons about diligence and purpose and identity and motivation and all these different things. And not in a way where he really sat down and had a conversation one-on-one with a lot of us about that stuff, but it was with intent with the practice schedules, and it was with intent with how we dressed and our uniforms and with everything that we did. And it was one of those things where you don't really realize it until you're removed from the situation, where how valuable that person was to you. Right now I have tremendous mentors that surround me. I belong to a church called One Church, and the lead pastors there push me so hard to just be a deeper thinker, and I've really kind of pushed this word and this message that I've thought about and portrayed, and doubt, and how I have to have doubt for there to be any faith. I have a tremendous mentor as a fiance, and she continues to push me. I've made personal growth concrete and everlasting in eternity with Molly, and she just continues to push me and challenge me and show me love and show me grace and share joy with me. And so I've made that permanent by asking her to marry me. So that's a tremendous mentor of mine as well.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you feel that your medical condition influenced your life today?
Absolutely. I think I changed the old saying of everything happens for a reason to make more sense to me. I changed it to say everything happens on purpose for my purpose. And it's just a little stronger to me, I guess. My heart condition literally was a blessing in disguise and saved my life. Not from a medical standpoint, but from like a spiritual, emotional, mental standpoint. debilitated me a little bit physically. Like it puts a limitation on me physically, but it opened me up to think deeper and be more emotionally stable and challenge my own way of thinking. And also it just breathed purpose into me. And I think we all have like those little things in our life where, you know, I'm at point A, my purpose is this point B, and little things in your life kind of act as this thing to knock you back on track. And I think that's where I was. I was veering off track, and maybe this is kind of a weird concept, but you know, it kind of pushed me back on track to, this is a different way where I can use my story, use my scars very literally to make an impact on other people's lives. And not just what I was going to school for, not just because I was getting my master's in applied exercise science, but I can help them emotionally and mentally and spiritually as well. And I think it serves a huge purpose in the rest of my life and what my purpose is from here on out. Thank you for asking that.
Anything else? All right, Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
man.
appreciate it. Our next guest is a medical doctor. Her name is Lydia Solani. We're going to be talking about the concept and word of time. Welcome, Lydia. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day and agreeing to come up here and talk to me about this great word of time. Same as Zach, just start off by just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
My name is Lydia Solani. I was born 3 months early, 3 minutes before my identical twin sister, and I promise you that was the last time I was on time. I'm 100% Lebanese, and I knew from a young age that I wanted to do something with my life that encompassed a lot of different things that I loved. So, so that's how I feel like I became to be a physician, is because it encompassed everything about being human that I felt was important to me.
Awesome. So what does time mean to you?
So that's a very loaded question. We all have a finite amount of time on this earth. And when you first asked what word would define you, it quickly came to my mind, well, obviously it's time. In the profession that I chose, we're open 24/7, 365 days a year. There are, how do we measure our time? We measure our time conventionally with seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades, centuries. But how did it all start? People from the beginning have tried to figure out, what does time mean? Looking at the sun, looking at the moon, looking at the stars. Do we have rituals to signify what season's coming up? What does it mean that the sun's setting? It caused people to be afraid, but also to be hopeful. And people still are trying to figure out, what does time mean? You see arguments on, is it a definite linear thing? Can I follow it from point A to point B? Is it limitless? Can you really define it? So to me, I feel that in my life, I've looked at time a number of different ways. The first one being that conventional way of thinking. How do I measure things in terms of the minutes I'm spending in my day? How do I get from point A to point B? So a lot of people can theorize on time. Some people suggest that time can be divided 3 separate ways: time past, time present, time future. And the way that you look at these different things might guide how you feel productivity in your life. So when I come to work every day, I have 8 hours of a shift. I don't know what's coming in through that door. I love that about my job. It is 8 hours, and I tell myself in 8 hours I can do anything. Sometimes I feel energized, sometimes I feel defeated. When I walk into a room, I quickly look at vital signs on my patients. I'm an ER doctor, so I walk in and that's the first thing I look at is what's your heart rate, what's your blood pressure, what's your temperature, how fast are you breathing, and how do we measure those things? We measure them with time. So it, on my daily job, is on my mind even when I'm not thinking about it. And it becomes very real when you see a patient in your ER take their first breath of life outside into this world and also take their last. So it has helped me in living my life to get to where I'm at, to take a step back and say, maybe the way I was living my life before and measuring my time isn't a way that I would continue to measure my time, which is, okay, I have to study because I have a test next week. And then after that test, I'm going to take a really big test, which will allow me to go to medical school. And then when I'm in medical school, I'm going to study all these hours. I'm not going to sleep or eat or do anything because it takes too much time on. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have 30 minutes to work out. And I have time for a snack. I can't go to the grocery store because I have to study for like 12 hours. And when you have these time crunches and time goals, it certainly does serve a purpose when you're future oriented to get you to where you need to be. But there are times when you need to look back at time past and say, what have I learned through my experiences through my life? And then look towards the present. Am I actually living my life if I'm eating Cheez-Its and Nutella at night for dinner and studying out of these medical books? Am I living life? So I guess for me, in reflecting on time, it's something that we all are given. We don't know how much time we get. And to me, that's what makes it so precious. It's a commodity that you can't buy. I don't know what time is promised to me. My patients certainly don't. And when they come into the ER, it's very real.
Yeah, so I'm curious, with your profession, obviously takes a lot of schooling, right? A long time, lots and lots of time. With this mindset you have about never knowing when your time is up, you know, obviously that's something that's very real for all of us. What was it like when you finished all of those years of school and you looked back and you're like, whoa, I just used a lot of my life trying to get to this point? Like, were you in a state of certainty there, or was it kind of like, oh shoot, like I got to make up for those last however many years? How long did it take, first of all?
Brad, that's a great question. So when you think about school, it's very linear, right? You have 12 years, and then you're like, okay, I'm a senior. That's where you're at. Ready to go to college. College is 4 years, and after that, another 4 years of medical school, and after that, another 3 years of my emergency medicine residency, and after that, another 1 year of emergency ultrasound fellowship. I'm not going to do the math because I'm not that great at math, but also because it's crazy. 1 minute you're 18, the next minute you're in your 30s, and you think, where the heck did that time go? I gave up my 20s essentially to go to school and to work on this nebulous goal of being a physician. And I think when I made the decision, I wasn't necessarily completely aware of all of the trade-offs of my time that it entailed.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't talk about enough around doctors, but it's unselfish, and it's also crazy to think about that you gave up that much of your time solely for the purpose of every day going to work to help keep other people's time around, which I think is really interesting. It's a weird concept to think about, that like every day that's your, I mean, yeah, you have different tasks, but at the end of the day, you're trying to keep people alive. You're trying to give them more time, even if that's 2 days or whatever it might be. I just would love to hear kind of more about that experience, like in your profession specifically, where that just has to be stressful.
Absolutely. When you walk into a room and you see that someone is struggling to breathe, I'm thinking in terms of seconds and minutes. And what am I doing right now to make sure that they can breathe? So everything in the ER happens pretty quickly, but it can seem like an eternity. When somebody is struggling, when you see their color changing, when you see their vital signs plummet, you're thinking, what am I going to do right now? And during those moments, all that time that I spent in school is worth it to me, because it brought me to that point, and on that day, affecting that person's life. I don't remember many of my patients, but I'm sure they remember me, because they meet me during a time when they're very vulnerable, during a time when they're not choosing me as their physician. They get me by chance, and I have to perform. And I see it as my duty to give them 110,000% of what I have to get them to the next point. And I feel like I can't put a price on that. So we work as a team in the ER, it's not just me. And when you do something in the matter of minutes to change someone's life, it affects you. And it allows me to reflect on my life, and it's a gift that I get from my patients every single day, is they give me the gift to look at my life and say, am I doing what I need to be doing with the time that I'm given? And so many times I walk in and I'm just kind of gut punched by something a patient tells me that resonates with my life, or seeing a coworker that helps me out with my day or brings a smile to my face. All of these moments in my daily job make every single minute of studying, of sacrifice, of 200 grand in debt worth it.
Wow, that's a lot of money. That's really, wow. That's a lot to unpack, and that I'm trying to empathize and think about what that would be like, and it's insane. Like, I can't even imagine what that's like. I'm curious though, when you're dealing in seconds, minutes, maybe sometimes hours on a more of a short-term basis with your time, do you ever have time to think about like your long-term plans? Like, what am I going to do in 20 years? Or is that hard for you? Like, do you ever come home and you're just like, I need to take some me time. I need to think about myself. Like,
it is so important to recharge in doing the job that we do, and that kind of allowed me, after I was done with the schooling, after I was done with my residency training, to then take a seat back and say, whoa, what am I doing with my life? What are my hobbies? What do I want to do outside of the construct of medicine? So that's a great question, because it's a question that I don't feel I really asked myself until I was done with my training. And so imagine you're going through the questions in your mind right now, and how can you get to be 30-something years old and not know what you like to do for hobbies, or what makes you happy, or your 5 and 10 and 20-year goals. It's going to be different from person to person, but I feel that in terms of studying, in terms of getting to that goal, once it's realized, you take a step back and you take a deep breath, and you say, where am I at now, and what am I doing next? So over the last, I'd say 3 and 4 years in all earnest, is when I've discovered what makes me me, what kind of hobbies make me tick. How do I want to spend my time, and how do I want to measure my time? So we talked a lot about measuring time in terms of conventional ways, looking at a watch and saying, how do I measure it? I feel that as the years have gone by, I've looked at what experiences am I going to measure my time with. For instance, spending New Year's abroad. I was with my girlfriend in Edinburgh, Scotland, this year, watching the Scottish celebration of New Year's called Hogmanay. It's basically a 3-day festival that takes pagan rituals of marching with torchlights to announce the coming of a new year, and also combined it with a traditional Scottish kilt dancing party. So I think about what it felt like being there, the colors of the kilts of the people dancing around me, the smells of Scottish food, and that's how I measured that time. Or when I was in Lebanon this last summer with my family, hadn't been there in 26 years, and being with my grandpa in the Mediterranean Sea, kind of splashing water, and I was measuring time with how the salt felt against my skin. meeting my hero, John Mayer, I only had a couple minutes with him, and you knew this was going to come up. Like, there's a 0% chance I'm not going to talk about John. So I spent months, and just even kind of how did I get those tickets? How did I get those front row tickets? Well, everybody that is a lover of concerts knows Ticketmaster releases their tickets at 10 a.m. and you better be on your computer. You better have your, special American Express City card for the pre-sale, because you're not going to get the ticket. I could give you guys tips. So, sitting at my computer and praying, and praying to all the saints that I could think to pray of, saying I was a good person. Like, I've spent so much time in school, and there's only this one singer that for the last 15 years of my life, 15 years, I've loved this person and their thoughts and their words and their songs and their guitar playing and their ideas. Just please, if somebody out there is listening, let me, at 10 a.m., when I press go, get these tickets. So what happens? I'm sitting there, doing everything I can think to do to give myself good luck, press go, and then I see the tickets. I don't believe that I have them, but I think something may have worked. Maybe it was the years of med school and the selflessness. I'm not sure, but I'm not questioning it. So then it became months leading up to this event of planning, like, what am I gonna wear? What shoes and what perfume, and what is John gonna say to me? What am I gonna say to him? What do I want out of this experience? And you focus so much on, the time, like, how much time do I have? What day is it? It was August 26th. We get the schedule of the day. And I'm thinking to myself, I just want to remember what it felt like. And, part of what it felt like was, what was I wearing? How was I feeling? What did it smell like? So when I crossed the corner to finally meet him, I'm thinking, all right, check your pulse. You might pass out. Something terrible may happen and you may never meet him. But oddly enough, I felt super chill and calm, and I just felt completely at ease, because this is a guy who's written multiple songs with my name in it, so why should I be nervous? Clearly these were for me. So I walk up to him and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to say? He goes, hey, I'm John. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just lunged at me. He looks like a normal person. He's very friendly. He's way taller than I thought he was. And all I could think was, I really want to hear him say my name. I don't want to tell him my name. I want him to guess. So I go, it's actually in one of your songs. And he looks at me and he goes, which one is it? Like, I wasn't anticipating a back and forth. I was hoping he would pick one. There's only like 5 other girls who he's written songs about. So I go, it's actually in 2 of your songs, and there's one with my middle name as well. And so now he's like really thinking, like, what is this girl talking about? So he's like, give me a hint. So I had to. So I told him Room for Squares, and he just looks at me, and I'll never forget it. He goes, Lydia. I'm like, okay, mission accomplished. Blacked out after that. Don't know what happened next. He had his arm around me. My head was against his chest. And it honestly, Brad, felt like hours. It probably, if I'm being honest, was a minute of all this. My sister comes across, we're taking pictures, my sister comes across, he goes, are you guys related? Oh my God, John Mayer is noticing that we're related, this is crazy. But what I'm getting at is I felt so at ease in that moment. It was so much fun to just not think about the time and to just think about how I was feeling. And that culmination of 15 years of listening to these songs and having all these memories related to going to his concerts and loving that and loving every moment brought me to the point of meeting my hero and just having him say my name. It was like 30 seconds, a minute, but it was worth it. Kind of like going to med school. It was worth it. I don't regret it. And if I want to look at memories now, I want to measure them with how do I feel in the moment.
Well, that's an amazing story, and you have such a unique story and experience as a life, and I wish you good luck going forward, because I think you're going to have some more interesting experiences with your time. But thank you so much for your time today as well. I really appreciate it. So.
Thank you, Greg.
Does anyone have any questions for Lydia? Zach?
I know it's all about time. Have you ever had a moment in your life where you wish you would have gotten some time back?
That is an awesome question. Like time back, like I feel like I wasted time.
Or you like wasted time, or you regretted something, or like you just wish you could have got that time back?
I think the moments I regretted most were when I felt paralyzed because I couldn't speak. I felt so much emotion that I didn't know what kind of words could encompass what I was feeling, and so I kind of retreated to myself. It really took some influence in having an individual basically tell me, hey, you know, if you can't speak, no one knows what you're thinking. And when it's those important moments of your life that you feel you can't find words for, which is why I love this concept, is because those are the moments that you hold dearest to you. Those are the moments where you feel super vulnerable, that I wish I had time back to go back and speak my mind and not be afraid of the consequence of using my voice, whether the reaction on the other end would be positive or negative. I regret that in those moments in the past, I haven't been able to be true to myself and my feelings and express it. So I don't regret that they happened, because if I hadn't had those moments, I wouldn't now be able to look back and say, I'm just gonna be true to me, I'm gonna follow what makes me happy. I'm going to crazily, you know, meet John Mayer or go to a million concerts or go on all these trips with my friends. I don't regret it one bit, because it made me realize that I should focus on using my voice and my actions to live a life that for each second I could be proud of living.
Awesome.
Anything else quickly before we move on? Khalil?
So what do you do in the ER when time runs up?
And time runs up, I'm taking that as when I can't do anything else for somebody. It's very much for me a ritual. So I take a moment and I look at the team in the room and I see how hard everyone's working. People are, you know, doing chest compressions, making a heartbeat. They're sweating. They are intensely involved in this moment, maybe 10, 15 people in a room. And we're looking at the monitors, and I know this isn't good. And at some point, I'm gonna have to look at my watch and say, time of death. And before that moment, I like to use touch and use my hand and put it on a patient's forehead, just to say, no, I don't know where they came from, I don't know what their life has been up to this point, but just to feel like I might be their last human connection before they transition out of this world, and to use that and feel some kind of connection and kind of thank you, and this is your exit from here, I don't know what happens next. And it's, I think, not up to me that that was their time. And I look at my watch and I say, time of death. We exit the room, we take a moment to debrief as a group, and you quickly have to go on to the next, because there's people that need you. So you don't really get a chance to say, whoa, I'm really emotionally exhausted right now. You don't get a chance to check your own pulse or check how you're feeling, gauge your temperature. But I'll tell you what, it never leaves me, and I don't take for granted the gravity of those moments, and that complete strangers are trusting me with their life, and I think that's what I love most about my job. So when time's up, it allows me to take a step back, to pay homage to that person's life, but to also not take my own for granted.
Awesome. Well, thank you again,
Thanks.
Lydia.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Our last guest today will be E.C. Caraba Green. She was on the 4th episode of More Than a Word, talking about vulnerability, and we're going to be talking about the same word today. That was a conversation that we had to cut short because of time for the episode, but probably could have talked for a couple of days. And we did talk after we stopped recording. We sat there for like 3 more hours, I think, something like that. Probably made you late to a meeting or something.
Yeah. Time, yeah.
All right, well, EC, can you tell everyone who you are, kind of what you do?
Good afternoon. My name is EC Green, and I have the privilege of fully living out my purpose every day by being able to serve those who may not be able to help themselves. So I work for Physicians Care Connection, and we are responsible or have the joy of helping people navigate the healthcare system. And through this, we help people access care and resources so that they can improve their health outcomes. I also, for my own benefit, am a hip hop fitness instructor. And through that, it's interesting because I live in connection with men and women who are meeting whatever purpose they have for that particular class that day through dance, and we connect through dance, which is awesome.
I also would like to say real quick, I've known EC since I could have walked, talked, anything else. She's been in my life since I was a baby. Used to work with my father, so she's seen me grow up, and I've seen her transition to a couple different jobs and do some really cool stuff. I've interned with her a couple times over the summer, so the work she does, super meaningful and very, very, very cool also. So EC, what does vulnerability mean to you?
So it's really interesting with Zach and Lydia. I think we've been talking about vulnerability this whole time. When you talk about doubt, when you talk about time. And for me, vulnerability is really about being exposed. And this exposure to me begins to help one actualize what their truth is. And as you begin to understand what your truth is, it guides you to your purpose. And for me, all of that is done for the purpose of connection. So Lydia gave a great example of time being up and that human connection to that individual, even though she may or may not know them, but to make sure that they have that connection before they leave Earth. I am one that believes that humans can't exist without connection. And if you see people walking around who aren't connected, they're numb. And even though their time is not up physically, they're not dead. They're walking around dead because they haven't made that connection. And so vulnerability, it encompasses so many words. Fear, this doubt, trying to realize your self-assurance. And a lot of times, it's difficult to be exposed because when you do that, there could be consequences to that exposure. But once you decide to really stand in what your truth is, it doesn't matter what the consequences are. It's more consequential to do something or to be something or someone that you aren't, because then you have to continue to figure out how you fake that character for your existence. So for me, learning to stand in my truth is really about accepting a lot of my flaws, but I've learned that nobody is perfect, right? We're all perfectly imperfect, but that's okay. And actually, like Zach talked about doubt, really understanding what your fear is or your flaws or the things that you can't do well, it motivates you and it elevates you to being that next chapter of your life. It challenges you, it pushes you to do things that you probably thought you couldn't do before. But it's still, being vulnerable is a scary place because a lot of times it might be about asking for help. And I'm one that for the longest time didn't know how to ask for help because sometimes you think it makes you weak. Somebody else is going through their own thing. Why should I put my own burdens on them? Or you see vulnerability in your family, or I see it every day in the people that we serve. I learned so much from our patients and the things that they go through in order to live, to make it every day, the things that we don't have to consider. I have an employee and I've told this story several times, that She's been in prison, and we work with a vulnerable population who she can sometimes assimilate to. She knows them, and I didn't know when I hired her the extent to what her problems were. You know, we see that folks want to help people who are vulnerable, and they think if we pay people $15 an hour, it makes all their problems go away. But they've got a lifetime of battles and challenges and things that they're trying to overcome. And they are very innovative. So I think I was telling your dad one day, she had a car when she started working, and something happened to her car. And she was so excited about this job because it was an opportunity that she'd never had before, to work with people that she could serve and to be in an environment that we had. And so she was giggling one day. She said, I have a U-Haul truck outside. I just want to know if it's okay to park it there. And I'm like, why does she have a U-Haul truck outside? You moving? What's going on? And she's like, well, if you rent a U-Haul truck, it's $19.95 a day. And it's cheaper than actually going to rent an actual vehicle. And so I thought, daggone it. I would have never thought of that as a solution, but it was smart. So again, this is just one of 20,000 stories that I have about working with people who, you know, are in a place of need and the things that they come up with in order to overcome.
So we talked about this a little bit on our last conversation, but I asked you if you considered yourself to be vulnerable, and you said yes, I believe, last time. What kind of shared the experience or series of experiences that got you to that point?
So there's one great example, and I'm going to highlight two people in this room. So Jeff and Phil, I've been able to have the pleasure of growing up myself in my professional career working for the two of them. And at one point, I was working with Jeff, and we had the opportunity to spin off a program, and I could go with that program and begin working with Phil. And so Jeff asked me if I'm interested, and I was like, nope. And the reason was because I was working with Jeff, and he was managing the board. Oh my God, this community board was awesome. And I felt like, there is no way in the world, if I move to this next organization, that I'm going to have the skill set or the talent to do that. And so, if this thing moves and it moves with me, then it's going to fail. So they put me on the transition team, and I was working back and forth, doing my thing. And Jeff sits me down one day. He said, hey, I heard you're doing a real good job on the transition team, helping them understand how they're going to move this thing forward. And I kind of looked at him like, what does he mean I'm doing a really good job? I'm just doing what I do. There's nothing special about what this is, but this is what I've learned, so this is what I'm doing. Long story short, Jeff gave me this great pictorial diagram of life and how you get to entertain opportunities of growth and challenges, and that sometimes you just have to try. And either you'll fail or you'll succeed, but you'll never know if you don't try. To accompany that, I talked to Phil a little bit about my concerns, and he said something that Jeff also said was, we're not going to leave you. We're not going to leave you by yourself to do this. We're going to support you and give you what you need in order to make this successful. We put a lot of time and energy into this, and so we want to make sure that it's good for the community, but also good for you. And so for me, they just don't know how much self-doubt I had. I was nervous, and I kept thinking, oh my God, if this thing fails, what is going to happen? But knowing that I would have their support helped me tremendously. And I grew in that role, and am here today because the two of them were kind of like my community, my village. They made sure that anything I needed, they helped me with, and that I was successful in it. So for me, that was kind of, for me, in my adult professional career life of the zenith. It was a turning point of realizing that I could do things that I thought I couldn't, And I think the big issue at that point was I didn't even know what I wanted to do in my career. I was just kind of working along, and I had some ideas. I had wanted to go to medical school. That didn't work out. Then I was like, oh, I'll be a dentist. Okay, no, I'll be an optometrist. You know, I just knew I wanted to work in the healthcare field, helping people, and I didn't realize what an opportunity I had in front of me because it was new. I'm a chemist by training, so I'm good with my hands. I don't necessarily have to think a lot doing that stuff. It's like there's formulas, there's math, you add it up, and not that it's that easy, but with this work, it touches the heart, and it touches the mind, and you have to think. And so I didn't think I had that capacity to do that. And so for me, that's, and I still carry that, that vulnerability of performing. Phil gave me the opportunity to become the executive director, and here I am going again like, what is all of this hoopla about this stuff? I'm just in here doing the things that are necessary, and I don't need to be recognized as anything else. But I thank Jeff and I thank Phil for really helping me overcome a lot of that self-doubt, a lot of those vulnerabilities, facing that fear, and then challenging me to be who I am today.
So in that line of work, you're working very directly, as we just heard, with a very vulnerable population. But I'm really curious, in your other line of work as a hip hop instructor, how does vulnerability play any role in that? And if so, I'm very curious to hear about that, because
I am so amazed. So I like to dance. That's the way I express myself. I social dance, I hip hop dance. And I have connected with these women, and so yesterday was my birthday, and somebody put a post on Facebook to say, I teach a 5:45 a.m. class, and I used to take the 5:45 a.m. class. And someone put a post on my page about how one morning they decided to go to class, their mind wasn't right, and they got up to work out, and they were behind me. And they don't know, or I don't know, how I inspired that person that day. I'm really loud and obnoxious in the class. I shake what I don't have. But I'm having a great time. And so a lot of times, I have people that are afraid to take the class because they think they can't dance. And all I say to them is, can you move? Can you march in place? Can you clap your hands? Can you snap? If you can do all of that, you can dance. And so there are a lot of women there that are afraid at first to take the class because they see us do it and they think they have to have some type of choreography. And so I tell them, hey, let me tell you the secret. I make up half the stuff anyway. I'm not doing the routine the way it's supposed to go, but I just want you to have a good time. But in that class, there was, so one day, well, after the elections last year, the elections was a really, tumultuous time in our country. And I just remember the next day at 5:45, we went to class, and there was like this silent sadness, but there was this togetherness. And no one spoke it about how they were feeling, but we really spoke it through dance. We were yelling and hoo-hawing and giving each other high fives. And in our own ways, no matter which way you wanted to go, we were working through that issue, but we did it together. And no one ever said anything, but you knew it was there.
It's really interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and thoughts on the word of vulnerability. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions for Isi? All right, well, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Can I just say something about you really quick?
I think that's okay.
Okay. I just want to say thank you. Lydia and I were teasing each other, saying that, at 17, what the heck were we doing? I just want to tell you I'm very proud of you. I know I've known you since you were, very young. But I think what you're doing, regardless of your age, especially in this time, is much needed. So I also want to say thank you. I appreciate you having us here, and I appreciate what you're doing now and what you're going to continue to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's it for the podcast guest portion of the afternoon. We have the space for a little while longer, so I would encourage that you all get something to drink, and once again thank Colin for letting us have this event here. I don't know where Colin went, but he's somewhere. Oh, well, yes, he let us use the venue and get some good drinks and stuff. So before you leave, make sure you stop by the counter and get something on the way out. I just wanted to close. I was going to mention this at the beginning, but I wanted to wait until after EC and I's conversation about vulnerability. I put a document on all of your tables. It's kind of a program type thing, but on the top left of the front page, it just states more than a word's mission statement. And vulnerability is kind of the most important part of that sentence. And I was talking about this a little bit before at the beginning of the event, but I really believe that by breaking down words as simple as they are, it's an amazing way to start feeling that vulnerability and really experiencing it within yourself. And once you do feel vulnerable, and once you have that in your possession, I strongly believe that it's very easy then to take that and transition it into meaningful action, which I think is super important for anything you want to do in life, whether it's making change or just getting where you want to go. That meaningful action is the way that you do it, and I think that by breaking down these words, we're going somewhere with that, and we're getting towards that meaningful action. So I hope you all had a good time today. I did. It was really fun to see all you here and to talk with you all, and please stick around, and I want you all to meet each other. If you don't know each other, I know a lot of you do, but there's some cool people in here that all have done a ton for me. There was on the episode I had about family, I think it was episode 8, my guest who works with the shelter board in Columbus, she works a lot with vulnerable families who are homeless. And she brought up this concept of biological versus logical families. So your biological family is who you're born with. But then there's also your logical family, who are the people who you're not necessarily connected to by blood, but who you think of and you love as family. And I would consider all of you in this room to be part of that. You've all done so much for me over the years in different capacities, and I would never be standing in front of you today talking into a microphone if it weren't for all those little impacts. So I just want to thank all of you, and there's people outside of this room also that couldn't be here, but you guys have all done some amazing stuff, and I hope that you keep going and you keep pursuing that meaningful action and vulnerability in your own lives. Just like to close with that. So thanks again for coming. Get some drinks and hang out for a little bit. Thank you.